The year is 48 BC. Roman general Julius Caesar has just invaded Alexandria, Egypt, and he's looking for some fun. What better way to get it than by burning the greatest library in the known world to the ground? Okay, maybe not exactly his idea of fun, but when your ships run on fire, and there is an entire fleet of Egyptian warships waiting to board you on the other side of town, you don't exactly have many options left. And that is how one of the greatest tragedies in the history of mankind happened. What's up, everyone? Welcome to my channel, Past Ancient History. In today's video, we are going to look at the mysterious loss of the Library of Alexandria, one of the great unsolved mysteries of the ancient world. The exact cause of its destruction is unknown, though most historians agree that a series of unfortunate events contributed to its downfall sometime around the year 391 AD. One of the most popular theories blames Julius Caesar and his invasion of the city, which did, in fact, result in a small part of the library being burnt down. But most scholars agree that this was not the event that led to the library's total destruction. There is no record that the majority of the library was lost in this fire. Instead, Caesar only torched part of it accidentally while blockading the harbor against the Egyptian army. There is also no evidence that the Romans deliberately targeted the library. The fire may have spread from nearby buildings, and the valuable books and scrolls within the library could have easily been consumed by the flames. But whether or not this initial incident actually caused enough damage to lead to the complete destruction of the library is questionable. After all, the Library of Alexandria had survived for nearly 400 years before this point, and had recovered from various disasters throughout its existence. So it is hard to believe that such a well-established institution would be so carelessly wiped out by a single accident. Other theories suggest that the real culprit was the civil war that engulfed the region just a few decades after Caesar's death. The conflict between Octavian and Mark Antony resulted in another siege of Alexandria, and it seems likely that the library suffered some damage as a result. We know that the Serapeum, where many of the library's books were stored, was badly damaged during the conflict, but again, there is no evidence that this destruction was any more severe than in previous years. It was not until 391 AD that the last remnants of the library were destroyed, but nobody knows who is responsible. The main theory is that Christian fundamentalists, who opposed paganism and the worship of Serapis, the god of learning, targeted the library as a center of pagan culture and knowledge. According to one version of the story, the Christian bishop Cyril led a mob of zealots to the library, accusing its staff of blasphemy. A riot then broke out, resulting in the destruction of the Serapeum and the burning of the library itself. However, this account comes from a letter written by the Roman philosopher Pliny, the younger more than 100 years after the event took place. It's possible that Pliny simply retold the story based on earlier accounts without fully understanding the context. Another possibility is that he intentionally slandered the Christians, blaming them for the destruction to appease his Roman audience. The Christians weren't exactly popular in the first century, so painting them as the villains of the story would have made for an easy crowd pleaser. Either way, we cannot accept this account as historical fact, and there are many things that don't make sense about it. For example, why would anyone want to destroy such a revered institution? The library was a source of national pride for Alexandria and the rest of the known world. Even people like Aristotle, Ptolemy, and Euclid, who founded schools of philosophy and mathematics elsewhere, still drew students from the Library of Alexandria because it was such a valuable resource. No one wanted to destroy it, not even the Christians. While they did, in fact, oppose the worship of Serapis, it doesn't mean that they wanted to target a center of learning. In fact, early Christianity was largely based on the teachings of the Jewish people, and Jesus himself stated, "Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them." In light of this, it seems highly unlikely that early Christians would have attacked a library, especially since they would have benefited greatly from the knowledge contained within. If anything, they would have tried to convert the pagan scholars into Christianity instead. Perhaps the truth lies somewhere in the middle. Maybe a combination of factors led to the library's demise. Maybe the invasions, the civil war, and the religious fervor all played a role in bringing down this great institution. Or maybe there was another, more sinister reason behind the destruction of the Library of Alexandria. Maybe it wasn't an accident or an act of mindless vandalism, but a deliberate attempt to erase the knowledge of the ancients once and for all. But why would someone want to do that? Who would benefit from wiping out so much valuable information? Unfortunately, nobody knows for sure. But there are some clues that might shed light on this dark conspiracy. The timing of the library's destruction, right as paganism was falling out of favor across the Mediterranean, is certainly suspicious. Could it be possible that those who supported the new religion wanted to eliminate everything that stood against it? The early Christians had already succeeded in closing the Temple of Artemis, one of the ancient world's 7 wonders, and persecuting pagans who refused to convert. Perhaps they saw the library as a rival to their growing influence, and a symbol of everything that was wrong with the old ways. After all, paganism was based on tradition, passed down through generations without any form of documentation. Most of the myths, rituals, and beliefs of the time were never written down, so there was no central authority to ensure that the knowledge was preserved. If the Christians had successfully eliminated the Library of Alexandria, they would have dealt a massive blow to paganism, one that would have reverberated for centuries to come. This theory is further strengthened by the fact that the library was never rebuilt. The city of Alexandria continued to thrive as a center of trade and culture long after the destruction of the library, yet nothing was ever done to restore it. Why was that? Maybe the Christians truly believed that everything contained within the library was nothing but evil and heresy. Or maybe the leaders of Alexandria simply didn't see the value in preserving pagan knowledge. Whatever the reason, we will never know for sure, because almost every trace of the library has been lost to time. Today, all that remains are a few scattered fragments of books, some ancient coins, and the stories of the people who lived during the time it stood. But what did these stories tell us? What was the true purpose of the Library of Alexandria, and how did it shape the course of history? Unfortunately, that is something we can only guess at now. Most people assume that the library was created by Ptolemy I, one of Alexander the Great's generals who seized control of Egypt after the king's death. According to legend, Ptolemy decided to honor his old friend by building the greatest library in the known world, filled with hundreds of thousands of scrolls on every subject imaginable. But whether or not this is true is questionable. The earliest record that mentions the Library of Alexandria comes from a letter written by the Greek poet Callimachus to King Ptolemy II asking for donations to expand the library. It's unclear if the library already existed at this point, but it certainly hadn't reached its full potential yet. Throughout the next 2 centuries, each new pharaoh tried to outdo his predecessor by adding more books and scrolls to the collection. They built new storage rooms, hired scribes to catalog the collection, and even sent fleets of ships around the Mediterranean to collect rare texts. At its peak, the library was home to hundreds of thousands of scrolls covering every subject imaginable: history, mythology, science, philosophy, math, astronomy, medicine, agriculture, you name it. They probably had a book about it. The library was divided into various sections, making it easier for scholars to find what they were looking for. There was the Greek collection, which contained works by Homer, Sappho, and Plato, as well as the Egyptian collection, which included texts on religion, medicine, and magic. There was also a section dedicated to the works of other Mediterranean cultures, such as the Persians, Carthaginians, and Gauls. The library even had its own museum where visitors could view artifacts from around the world, including mummies, animal skeletons, and pieces of art. While the library was open to anyone willing to pay the entrance fee, it was mainly used by scholars and researchers who came from all over the known world to study the ancient texts. The library also had its own staff of scholars who worked full-time to catalog new arrivals, write summaries of existing works, and even create their own texts. Some of the most famous scholars in history spent time at the Library of Alexandria, including Aristarchus of Samos, who calculated the circumference of the Earth and proposed a heliocentric model of the universe; Eratosthenes, who calculated the tilt of the Earth's axis and predicted the annual flooding of the Nile River; and Euclid, who wrote the first book on geometry and helped establish the library as a center of mathematical research. So you can see why the destruction of this great institution was such a tragedy. Humanity lost countless inventions, scientific discoveries, and works of art to the flames. How many of these works were actually lost forever is impossible to say. Some may have survived in private collections or been copied by scribes before the fire, but most were probably destroyed. The burning of the Library of Alexandria was a disaster not only for the people of the ancient world, but for all of humanity. What would you like to know about the Library of Alexandria? Let me know in the comments below. And if you liked this video, make sure to check out my other content. Thanks for watching. See you next time.